As we say in this podcast, and it comes from the scriptures, good afternoon, good morning, and good night. This is the Screen Watching Podcast. My name's Dan Barrett, joined by Comrade-in-Arms, it's Simon Foster. Say hi.
Hi, Dan Barrett. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Screen Watching. Do go on.
Now, as we started our little pre-show conversation, I think the general consensus of what we're talking about this week is, quote unquote, I'm not super excited about anything we're discussing today. Folks, on this week's show, we've got 28 Years Later, which is a zombie film which, before I spoke to Simon, I do note, I read a little comment saying that the critical consensus for this film is quite high, but the audience consensus, by way of Rotten Tomatoes, not so much. Where does Simon Foster fall into it? He's going to dive in and take a bite into this film in a short while. Me, I'm going to be taking a look. I'm heading to Teen Town, folks. I'm off to We Are Liars. It's a new YA drama currently playing on the Prime Video, based on a book, as all YA TV shows are. You can't make new YA anymore. It's just the old stuff. Folks, what else have we been watching? Great question. When I was a kid, they had YA originals. There was a little show called Dawson's Creek. The guy who created that, Kevin Williamson, he's got his own original drama. It's not for teens, but it may as well be. It's called The Waterfront. That's playing on Netflix. I'm also going to do a bit of a very quick look at something I've actually really been watching and enjoying this week for, it's questionable, but I have been enjoying it. It's called The Gilded Age. Simon, you've been checking out The Unholy Trinity, which sounds like it's a sequel to Russell Crowe with a Pope's Exorcist, but it's not. It is a Western drama, and it's got an interesting sort of backstory on it, and Simon's going to fly the flag for that. And also, folks, we can't finish a podcast unless we go to Brazil and particularly explore the boys from Brazil. We're doing a bit of a retro flashback to that fine feature. Folks, it's a busy show. It's going to be a long show. No, it's really not. It's going to be really quite quick this week. Folks, this is Screen Watching.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, Simon Foster, let's dive into this. Anything film-related you want to talk about? Anything that might involve Bradley Pitt? Vroom, vroom, vroom?
Well, I was going to... Hello, everyone. Welcome to Screen Watching, as I've already said. Look, we enjoyed a movie through the week, you and I together, with my wife between us. She was the movie-watching audience in our Dan and Simon sandwich.
We're actually legally required now to have a woman sit between us at movies.
Yeah, the manager comes out of the theatre and makes sure. And we watched F1.
Look, you played the popcorn game once and then suddenly your whole name's besmirched.
I know, I thought that was publicly accepted nowadays, but it's not apparently.
Yeah, well.
Yes, F1 is the movie we saw. We'll be reviewing that next week. It's loud, it's long. Is it any good? Well, we'll be reviewing that next week.
Spoiler alert, I kind of liked it.
Yeah, I kind of. But in every other sense, it's been very much... I mean, the big news this week is that we're getting new internet here. We're getting a new modem, and we're getting a much higher sort of bandwidth. I think that's what the kids call it. So we shouldn't have any more drop-in, drop-outs, because I can't watch any 4K on any of my streaming platforms. It fades in and out, and sometimes a little buzzy circle comes up. So we decided to fix that.
And is it a free upgrade for you?
I don't know. We're using a company called TPG. No, it's not a free upgrade.
No, because I'm also with the TPG, and mine just got upgraded.
Oh, nice. She did all the work on this, so I'll check with her what the details are. But we're getting a new modem, which handles... Are you on the 5,000 Mbps plan?
I'm on the 25,000 billion MPS
Oh, my goodness
plan.
me.
Yeah, I'm really connected and jacked in here.
Wow.
No, I'm actually on a much slower plan than I'm used to, only because I just moved into a new house and the fibre upgrade hasn't happened on this property yet. So the order's in, and about 2 to 3 weeks from now, I'll probably be on a similar plan to yourself there, Simon.
One of the ways listeners can tell that we're really not interested in the films or TV shows we're going to talk about is when we start talking about our Wi-Fi upgrades.
You know what I miss from modems when it used to make that sound as it tried connecting?
Well, there were moments of F1 which I thought sounded like an old fax machine, but that's, we'll discuss that later next week.
Yeah, but enough about Brad Pitt's screen charisma. Folks, let's dive right into the review for 28 Years Later. Let's watch the clip.
7, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boost, boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war.
Danny Boyle is back directing it's his second zombie film, his third that he's involved with. He didn't direct 28 Weeks Later, or was that? Yes, 28 Weeks Later. But he did direct the first one, 28 Days, which I loved. Didn't care for the second one. And here we are with the third one, 28 Years Later. Now, I have a confession to make about Danny Boyle. I'm not one for his movies. I'm not a fan. I find him a lot of flash, a lot of substance, a lot of talk after he's made the film about how important it is and how it's filled with socio-political bullet points and how he's making a statement on this or a statement on that, or he's a great academic of film and everything references something else. But the problem is he doesn't make very entertaining movies, and the style that he uses rubs me the wrong way. So, having said that, Can
I just say, because I think that every podcast really thrives on some back and forth of argument and conjecture. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree.
Okay, good, yeah. I've got to go all the way back to a little film he called, I think it was called Millions, about the little boy and who had the box of money, and even all the way back to Shallow Grave to find a Danny Boyle film that I really, really liked. Even Slumdog Millionaire kind of felt like him glomming on to someone else's better ideas. In this one, he revisits the zombie apocalypse 28 years later. There's survivors who have set up... it reminded me a bit of Mad Max 2 in that they set up the sort of a fortress on an island out in the middle of nowhere. It's linked to the mainland where zombies still abound by a causeway that is accessible at low tide. Why the zombies don't just run across this as soon as it happens, I don't know. There's a lot of illogicality in this movie which I started to really pick apart. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays the father of young Alfie Williams, and it's on his 12th birthday he gets to go a-hunting with his papa, and they cross the causeway and start shooting fat crawling zombies in the neck, but do find themselves caught up in a terrible zombie sort of mass riot that sees them hide out in a roof overnight, which they hadn't planned to do. I don't want to go too deep into the plot because then you would start to see just how little sense it really makes. Suffice to say that Jodie Comer turns up, terribly wasted by an underserved Alex Garland script, and they wander through her and the boy wander through the Everglades, through the woodlands, through the deer herds to find a oranged up Ralph Fiennes who may or may not be able to help them with their problems. It's the first part of what I believe is a planned trilogy, and Alfie Williams, who's not always very convincing as the kid in this, and I don't like bagging little kid actors because they're often in the hands of their directors, and that shows. And if he's going to play the lead in 3 films, I'm a little bit worried for the trilogy. It's like I said, if you can raise a whole lot of issues and you can talk your talk in interviews after you've made the film about how this represents that, and I was referencing this film, and at one point Danny Boyle uses old footage from films like Cromwell and you know, bows and arrows at the barricades against the invading French hordes to sort of, I don't know whether he was just trying to save money by not actually filming that against zombies, or he was trying to make a point, but it was kind of lost on me. That's the indulgence I don't like about Danny Boyle. And I think this movie, despite it being a big roll of the dice for Sony Pictures and a very expensive one, doesn't set the 28 franchise up for anything special going forward. So sorry, disappointed everyone. I know there's a lot of critical acclaim for it, as you say. I think it's running at about 90% on Rotten Tomatoes as we record this, but I don't know how it's going to play with the people. And we've talked this whole review without mentioning Zombie Peen, which is all the way through the film.
Look, I didn't have any questions until right now at the end, and it is not appropriate for this podcast. But Simon, just in the interest of doing some research, making sure I was coming to this with a accurate statement, there is a Danny Boyle film that I actually liked quite a fair bit. Okay, not commonly discussed, broadly forgotten. This amazing little 2013 film he did called Trance. which has the wildest twist ending on it that I've ever seen on a film.
Now, it's interesting you say that because Trance was the one that tipped me over the edge into really not liking it. That was the one. That was Rosario Dawson and McAvoy, wasn't it?
Yeah, and definitely a lot of Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, which I'm all for, of course.
But
I'm a
be part of the plot element of that film.
Oh God, I thought that was such a terrible film, and really has it chipped away at my patience for anything Danny Boyle, and that wasn't restored by 28 years later.
Yeah, no, agree to disagree on Trance. I think that film is something special. Yeah.
Let's see where we go. All right, I'm done. I can go now. Oh no, I've got to listen to you, don't I? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Legally. Folks, there's a thing that I have really come to terms with in the recent, 20 odd plus years. I'm an adult. Okay? I don't behave that way. Okay? Most people, will question that as a statement, but it is in fact true. I'm an adult, and one thing I've really struggled with is the rise of YA fiction. It is not something I've ever connected with because it's not me. I'm
it's
not.
The Y part, really. It's the young part. You're an adult, but it's the Y that really causes.
Yeah.
The biggest
And look,
problem.
the thing is, I shouldn't need to connect with YA fiction. It's fine because I am an adult. But I feel that there's something that's happened in the broader culture where, for some reason, if you want to be able to, push some bona fides out there, that you want some credibility in the world within the sort of cultural set, you need to be able to say, oh, I appreciate YA fiction. I think it's, but no, you're an adult. You don't actually need to be watching YA fiction. But it's really prevalent. And I got frustrated this week because it seems like every major release across all the streaming services all went very much into YA. Some of them are much more sort of more dramatically, impactful than just the standard YA genre. But the big two shows of the week this week was on Prime Video. We've got the show that I'm about to discuss. It's called We Are Liars. And then over on Netflix.com, you've got the WATERFRONT. Now, the WATERFRONT has this pedigree coming to it from Kevin Williamson, who's Dawson's Creek, Scream, and then all sorts of other favourite films that we've enjoyed over the years, like Killing Mrs. Tingle. Simon, no argument there?
I remember Killing Mrs. Tingle. I'm a Kevin Williamson fan, so I'm disappointed when I'm chatting about the WATERFRONT. But let's see what you say about We Were Liars.
Disgusting. He's made one good thing. It was called Scream. And even then, he just wrote it, didn't direct it. It's, but whatever.
He was a YA voice for a generation.
But look, we're going to focus on We Are Liars. This is firmly in the YA camp. This starts out with one of those things that verges on being the cardinal sin of things that I hate in this sort of mystery genre, which is dead body washes up on the shore and then narrates how it is that they came to die. Now, that isn't technically what happens in this one. She is alive. Okay, but she does wash up at the beginning, and so we see the narration with lots of florally language that comes from the poetry that she doesn't exhibit as a human being in the world, because it's all internalized.
We haven't played the trailer yet.
We'll play the trailer, we'll come back.
All right.
My name is Caden Sinclair Eastman. Yes, we are those Sinclairs. Some people call us American royalty. I feel I've known you all my life. We live, at least in the summer, on Beechwood Island. I know your marks, your every line. We were happy. We wanted for nothing. I just hope we don't run out of time. But something terrible happened last summer.
So what we've got here is, as I said before we went into the trailer there, body washes up on the shore, narrating what's taken place. Now, the structure for this one is that it's a split timeline. I should say this is based on a YA book, and the book itself had 3 timelines that it was working to, but they've scaled it back for 2 because it's kind of just hard tracking 3 timelines visually. So they made a pretty smart decision with this one, I think. And so what you're seeing here is it's a family that are a very wealthy family, the Sinclairs. Every year they go on summer in a way that wealthy people can afford to go and do. So immediately this has my hackles up. This is a show that's expecting me to sympathize with 2 groups of people, 1 the rich and 2 teenagers. And frankly, both of those are no-goes at the best of times. But
nowhere near those demographics.
Yeah, let's persevere and try to stick with it. rich family. Every year they holiday at a place it's a private island. Okay, so again, these people,
28 years later style.
tragically not. If there were zombies in this one, it might be slightly more like engaging. I'm not a big zombie guy.
Okay.
This does feel like a zombie show, though, in so many ways. But no, wealthy family, they holiday in this private island. It's near Martha's Vineyard, so like it's kind of that sort of look and vibe around the place. You've got the sort of patriarch of the family played by David Morse. Good actor. Who doesn't want to watch David Morse in things?
That's quality, yeah.
Yeah, you've got the adults of whom are like, his daughters, and then, there's one of the men in one of the daughters' lives, another one's divorced, another one's got a partner who's off on an island, or off island, somewhere else. But from the daughters, let me drop you two names. Caitlin Fitzgerald, you may not know her by name. You've certainly seen her on a couple of things over the years. Best known from Masters of Sex. She's really, really quite good. And she's just, she's kind of stuck in this one. And right next to her is Mamie Gummer, or Gummer. I've never known how to pronounce that. Yeah. Who, strong pedigree and, Meryl Streep's daughter. But look, she's been great in all sorts of things, including The Good Wife, Good Fight, and Mr. Robot, two of my favorites. I love Mamie. I think she's fantastic. Also, just as a fun little bit of casting here, we've also got, and I'm trying to, it's like Rahul Kohli, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's the gentleman that we saw in Midnight Mass as the cop in that one, if you remember, that main guy.
I do, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Right, so this has got people up front that I'd tune in for, YA or not. I'd watch a lot of these people. Great.
No, exactly. So it really pained me that I wasn't really digging this at all, because it's one of these things where, again, really florally narration over the top, which I never care for. It's predominantly about the teens, but then the adults also have all of their secrets as well, which kind of bubble away through the 2 seasons. But I will suggest that broadly, if you're watching it, all the activity with the adults and their secrets are kind of a diversionary element to this. And I don't want to spill this entirely, but it's split across 2 timelines. At the beginning, this girl's washed up on the shore, and so we jump a few weeks prior, and we sort of see the almost lead up to that. There is a gap of a few months between the events that we see in the first episode and that washing up, so you explore that through the first season. What got her there? And as the season unravels, it asks the question, why did none of her friends come and visit her in the year that followed? So, well, friends, cousins, and friends. So it's like the family, and then like a friend who's sort of near the island. So the mystery is, why did she wash up on the beach, and why did none of her friends see her after that incident took place? And so that's the question that...
A body on the beach. You can't make a show with a body on a beach post Twin Peaks and not have Twin Peaks referenced. Is there any sort of YA Twin Peaks?
No, don't look to Twin Peaks for this one. Okay. But there is, and I'm going to sort of say this, there's a twist in the final episode of what's either the series or season. Hasn't been picked up for a second series yet. So it's satisfying enough to end after 1 season, but there is a plan to go a bit further in. There is a plot twist that takes place at the end. And when I hear that there's a twist, my mind immediately goes to one very specific film. Simon, don't name it, but you're probably thinking about that title as well. And yes, this series goes in that exact same place. So if you're a teenager or like a young person, like maybe your early 20s, and you've found your way to this series, you're probably going to have a pretty good time with it, because you're not necessarily going to be that well versed in the movies of 1999 to immediately pick what the twist is going to be. But if you're maybe a little bit older, I think you're going to struggle with this one slightly.
All right. Okay. Now, I'm not averse to some YA storytelling. I like surely Stranger Things sort of qualifies as YA, and I'm an avid follower of that.
It does. I said there's 2 things that I hate, which is teenagers and rich people. But if you can justify the reason why you're exploring either of those areas, is all the more for it. Stranger Things works because it's a pastiche of the 80s, and they're very much sort of trying to harken back to that era. It's a very deliberate pastiche throwback. Okay, so it's asking you to remember those films and shows that you enjoyed back in this time, that cultural era. You're reconnecting with that. Okay, but you're not necessarily asked to connect deeply emotionally with those kids. They're kind of vessels for the overall vibe of the show to go. And certainly people do connect with them, but I don't think I'm being asked to do that as an adult. So I'm not supposed to think, Dustin, I'm so well connected with your whatever Dustin's up to that season.
I was going to say you're a Dustin, for sure.
Yeah. But then also rich people, like, maybe it's Succession, or the other week I reviewed the film Mountainhead, and I got quite a sort of kick out of that. And that's because it's really exploring what does it mean to be wealthy and what's the impact of wealth on broader society and culture and that sort of power element that sort of flows through. Like, there's conversations happening there, but this is a series that doesn't explore wealth. It's really just exploring the idea of a closed-off family and what that wealth does just specifically to these people. And that's not that interesting to me.
You kept using the word twist, and then you said, I know you're thinking of a film, Simon, don't say it. I was actually thinking of Beverly Hills Cop when he goes, a little lemon twist. So that's where my brain goes.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking about, Simon. That was exactly the reference.
All right, let's get on to the next one. What was that called? We Were Liars, and where's it seen?
It's on Prime Video. There's 8 episodes, and it's either 1 season or 3.
Okay, all right, good to know.
But just 1 for the moment.
What have I been watching? What else have I been watching, you ask? Oh,
Great question.
All right, well, let's jump straight into this. In limited release cinemas this week and wider through the Hoyts chain next week is a Western. We don't see a lot of Westerns up on the big screen anymore, not since Horizon bit the big one. It's called The Unholy Trinity. Excuse me. It is made by a guy called Richard Gray, who born and bred in Melbourne, but he's upped his little red wagon and gone to Montana, where he set up a filming facilities in the great wide open West, and he now makes these sort of mid-tier Westerns. He did a thing called Murder at Yellowstone City a couple of years ago, and he's
absolutely not connected to the very popular Yellowstone TV series.
Not at all, but certainly pops up when you put it in your search engine. So that's
oh my god, he must be so embarrassed that happened.
But he's been involved with a whole lot of these sort of streamer westerns, let's call them, that are made for the small screen, occasionally sort of filter through to the big screen like The Unholy Trinity has. And he's managed to surround himself with some fairly sizable stars. This one stars Pierce Brosnan as a very grizzled, old, dusty, small-town sheriff who's got to fight off a brutal Samuel L. Jackson as a man searching for gold that may or may not be hidden under the church. No spoiler alert, but it is. Brandon Lassard plays a young man who sets out to seek vengeance for his father, but who is turned around by the good guy Pierce Brosnan and finds himself in a standoff with Samuel L. Jackson, and a whole lot of other actors who turn up in these sort of things, like David Arquette, your friend Ethan Peck, who you interviewed not so long ago and can be seen on our YouTube channel.
From the Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Yeah,
exactly right. And he plays
also really nice guy. I quite liked him.
Yeah, do check out that interview. It's a good chap. And so what you have is a film shot against a lot of big snowy mountains, a lot of good work done on the costuming and the character work by these actors, and it's not ever going to win any Academy Awards, well, unless it's a really quiet year, but it's for those of you who enjoy a good 90-minute westerns with a bit of a shoot 'em up and a couple of bad guys shooting at good guys, then this will do the job, and it's in cinemas, some cinemas now and a lot of cinemas next week.
I feel that is very worth noting as well, that the screenplay is written by Lee Zachariah, who people would know in Australian film circles from his film criticism-ish show from back in the day, which I can't think of the name of it, Something Project.
I can't either, but yes, you're absolutely right to point that out. He's also a fellow Victorian alongside Richard Gray, and they've worked together previously, and Lee's a terrific guy. I've met him a couple of times. He's now writing these scripts for Richard Gray's company, as well as doing a lot of other things. So yeah, good Aussie connection, despite this being a very Midwest flyover state sort of film. And Brosnan's really good in this role. I'm enjoying watching Brosnan sort of age into his silver hair and grizzled features.
Any particular reason why, Simon?
Yeah. That's what I'm looking like right now.
You didn't have to say it. You didn't have to say it.
Don't get me started on my hair, okay? I've had people say things to me this week that suggest that it's really thinning out very quickly. I was always hoping for that big sort of whooshy silver hair that, I think I've mentioned it previously, like Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October, but it's not going to happen. Even the beard's not looking that good.
Have you ever thought about just like shaving it all off entirely, okay, and then spending a lot more time indoors, okay, and maybe go for that sort of look of, I can't think of the name of the actor, but the gentleman who played Darth Vader when they take off his helmet on like Return of the Jedi?
Well, I'm not going for that look specifically. There's a French actor
Simon,
called Jean.
don't rule it out. That's all I'm saying.
It's a French actor called Jean-Marc Barr, who was one of the most beautiful men ever born, and is the example that my wife threw at me when she said, "Shave your head off." She said, "You might look like Jean-Marc Barr," and I went, "Yeah, not just by shaving my head, I'm not." But yeah, I might go the bald look sometime before the end of the year. I don't know. It's such a big leap to make. I was so proud of my hair. I'm such a vain man.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like you going the Vincent Price route, frankly.
Why? What happened to his hair?
I mean, I mostly just know him as, what was his Batman villain name? It was like...
I'm not entirely comfortable being discussed in the same breath as looking like Vincent Price. That's just really right. Can we just move on? What else have you been watching?
Egghead. That was his Batman villain. And he used to do lots of egg puns that would always be like, exactly.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. You'd love it.
All right.
Okay. Look, I mentioned a short while ago, I was in fact talking about The WATERFRONT, which is the new Kevin Williamson TV series. This is a series for Netflix. It says that it's based in part on a true story, and it's kind of Kevin Williamson drawing upon part of his own life and the life of his father, who apparently had some sort of criminal component to his life. Set in North Carolina, and while I was definitely likening this to YA dramas, it's not necessarily a teenage-focused drama, but it feels very much like a lot of those sort of youth-focused shows we'd see on like the CW. We're dealing here with a much more adult cast, and the cast itself, it's actually pretty good. Again, kind of a bit like we are LIARS. We're dealing with a quite good cast of actors that you know here. Holt McCallany.
I can't say it either. It's such a strange name.
Yeah, who we all know from Creepshow 2.
Creepshow 2, yeah.
Yeah, and of course,
Who had
lots
a
of
great head of
things
hair in that.
Yeah, things are actually good. Maria Bello, who I'm a big fan of from many things over the years. Melissa Benoist, who people would know probably best as Supergirl, but has certainly been in a few things here and there. And I think she's generally very good. Unfortunately, she's just kind of in things like The WATERFRONT. There's some guy named Jake Weary who, look, I've not really been familiar with him from other things. And certainly after this, I don't know. I'm super enthused to see more Weary joints. But, maybe I just haven't seen the right thing yet from this guy. And Topher Grace is in this, and I've got a lot of time for Topher Grace.
Again, quality cast. How could you
Really
not
good
like this
cast.
show? Why are you not liking this show?
Well, it just feels like a CW drama. And I appreciate that for some audiences, like that is perfectly fine, but it's just not really what I'm after. So it's, there's the wealthy patriarch family, there's the son that's never quite lived up to father's expectation. Yeah. Everyone's kind of got a bit of a secret going on. It's just relationship nonsense. It's the kind of thing where, despite the fact that everyone lives in this sort of fairly smallish community town of, 10, 20,000 people, you'll see, the Jake Weary character, turns up to a store. He's talking to, a woman who's clearly had, a history with going back to when they were teens. And they'll, be talking about something innocuous, and then just kind of out of nowhere, she's like, I never really understand why you never left town. And then they'll do this big expository thing, and it's just... Yeah,
it's a bit old hat, isn't it?
It's just a bit of a waste of time. I don't know. There's an audience for this, fairly undemanding audience. It just wasn't for me. But something that has been for me, Simon, is... Look, I don't know if I've ever invited you to go luncheon before, but I've been watching a lot of The Gilded Age, which is the HBO drama that no one remembers exists. Do you know the show at all, Simon?
I remember you loved the first series when you spoke about it on the podcast. I didn't
years
know
ago.
It existed. Yeah, it was a few years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of these shows that have been impacted by strikes and COVID and all this sort of business. Yep. So you may remember there was a little TV show called Downton Abbey. Yeah. So
I know of the movies.
So it was a TV series first, Simon. Julian Fellowes, the guy that created Downton Abbey and wrote it, he was kind of approached by NBC to hey, how about you do an American Downton Abbey? And so he created the show for them called The Gilded Age. Anyway, NBC are kind of I don't think we want to do this anymore. So they shopped it around, HBO picked it up. And so when you're watching this, it doesn't quite feel like it's been through the HBO development cycle. It just kind of feels like there's something a little bit missing from the show, like that special HBO thing that they seem to...
Because it certainly looks like a HBO production. It looks
absolutely does.
You can see why they jumped on it.
It's got the budget. when you're watching it, every scene in it is super short, and it reminded me a lot of watching some of the shows that were made for Max. So there was some HBO managerial oversight to a certain degree, but they were produced under a different sort of regime. So if you watch things like the Sex Lives of College Girls, I think that was the name of the program, like every scene in that one goes like no more than like 30 seconds, and it just kind of jumps all over the place. Gilded Age is slightly more relaxed than that, but like no scene lasts more than like a minute and a half. And it just bounces all around the place with this large ensemble of characters, and it doesn't really feel as lived in and as worn an experience as you're expecting from most HBO dramas, which just have just a little bit more substance, I guess, than what this has to offer. But the Gilded Age is very much, it's the wealthy. I hate myself for being as involved in this as I am, because boy, these are not characters that are doing anything to further criticism or exploration of money or power. It's wealthy people inviting each other to lunch. The youngest daughter in the family, who's she sort of romantically entwined with for this, 4 or 5 episode arc. Like, it just kind of bounces around the place with really just frothy, trivial, there's nothing going on here. But there's a very big budget. There is this amazing cast. You're talking about people like Christine Baranski is leading one of the families. So she's old money. She's got her sister played by Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City, who has no makeup, and she's kind of just very, homely in this one. So they're the old money family, and then I've got her daughter, who is another Streep daughter.
Really?
Like the youngest Streep daughter. I'm pretty sure that's true, unless I've just made that up entirely.
Wow.
We'll look that up in a moment when you start speaking.
And this is leading into my Boys from Brazil thing.
They're all possibly. So you've got a girl who I'm pretty sure is a Streep. She certainly looks like a Streep. Across the road, you've got the new money. So this is, they refer to them as the robber barons. So this is, they've made their money from the rails. And so in the second season of the program, it's very much about, does he give in to like unions, which are starting to rear their pesky heads around the place. So they are ostensibly the bad guys. But Kerry Coon is the matriarch of that family, and she is keen for her family to really take their place in New York City as like the family to really be supporting. So it's new money versus old money and all the fallout that falls out from that. I hadn't bothered with the second season until last week, in which I blitzed the 8 episodes. It was, oh gosh, what's a really easy thing to have? Heroin? People are into that, right?
I know of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I did love and I'm shout out to your Always Be Watching newsletter, which is a terrific read most days. And
a couple of days this week, a little bit patchy, I will admit, but sure.
You tell the story of how Carrie Coon went straight from the White Lotus set to the Gilded Age set, and she wasn't allowed to have a suntan. Because it's a very big setting difference between Thailand and 1920s, whatever it is, Chicago.
Oh, like 1880s or something. It's like the Gilded Age. I'm trying to work out exactly when it is.
Right.
It's
terrific read.
Yeah. But look, I think part of why I'm so enthused about this program, and it really just stems from, went to New York a couple of years ago. I did this tour of Rockefeller Plaza, and I hadn't really sort of thought that much about New York history in like a really sort of tangible kind of a way. And if you're ever in New York, and I appreciate appetite for going to the US right now, not all that high for a lot of us.
Right? No,
Yeah.
not really.
But should you find yourself in New York, do the Rockefeller tour, because one, it's a really interesting building, and the tour is actually a really, really good tour. But when they're walking around the building, they actually talk about the influence of how media like left that building and has impacts like down the road, and how things that were happening with, say, the Rockefellers, because obviously there's a strong tie with the Rockefeller Plaza, Rockefeller's building things down the road, and how that sort of flowed back, and how New York City is actually structured based on the wealth dynamics of those sort of early, more powerful people, and the ones that really sort of shaped the city. Like, it's interesting. Rockefeller's kind of at the heart of all that, and maybe my perception's skewed because it was a tour about Rockefeller Plaza going outwards. But as I watch the Gilded Age, and you're seeing them talk about the wealth and how that's having its impact. So in the second season, it's about the old money have an interest in their opera that they all support, but then the new money wants to support this thing called the Met. You may have heard of it. And so it's about the foundation of the Met and how all the maneuverings of Kerry Coon actually saw the Met become a success at the beginning and embraced by the money of the city. And so that kind of thing just sort of echoed in my mind a bit as I was thinking about that tour of Rockefeller.
Check this show out. I'm a fan of all these actresses, and I like that sort of Birth of a Nation kind of storytelling. So yeah, I might check this out.
Yeah, like it's good. It is feather light. Like there is nothing of substance to this show whatsoever. But it's still kind of just this enjoyable watch, and it's disgusting, but man, I love it so much.
All right, let's wrap this thing up with...
But also, Simon, sorry, just explaining a joke that I had at the beginning, because I always like introduce these things and I never follow up on them.
Okay.
Every episode, because this is feather light and it's all about their social engagements or whatever, they never seem to have dinner, but they're always inviting people to lunch. And they never say lunch, it's always luncheon. And so I've embraced this in my real life now, and I just keep on inviting people to luncheon.
We talk to each other every week, but we see each other like twice a year, so maybe we should have often... We should luncheon more.
We should luncheon, yeah.
I love a good luncheon. Okay.
Actually, you know what? Our mutual friend Ben, I was talking about luncheoning with him just yesterday on a text message. Maybe the three of us go and do something.
Yeah, let's have a triple luncheon.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, lovely.
He's paying, isn't he? He's got
probably.
Got all that money. He's old money. I didn't get to see Elio this week, which is the new Disney Pixar film in cinemas.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And it's got a splash of sci-fi about it, so I'll probably check it out at some point, but I didn't rush out and see it at the movies, so take your kids along and check it out. They usually deliver good movies. Instead, I stayed at home and watched with my good wife a film that was a very...
But not The Good Wife.
No, not The Good Wife, just A Good Wife. The Boys from Brazil is a 1978 film which played a very significant part in my love of movies because it was one of the first films released on VHS by a fledgling 20th Century Fox Studios. It was certainly a big deal cinema release in its day, but the story of Joseph Mengele, the insidious Nazi doctor, and spoiler alert here if you haven't seen it, but I'm going to blow it for everyone. He's creating clones that he spread all over the world that he hopes someday will grow into Adolf Hitler. He took a vial of Hitler's blood and using technology that wasn't available back in 1945, created 94 different Adolf Hitler clones that he spread all over the world. And this movie is about tracking those boys down and creating the exact life experience for them by killing having a father who died when he was 14 and having a mother who was doting. And so it's kind of this weird sort of science fiction-y sort of movie, but completely shot as a very laborious, heavy-handed, slightly campy 1970s melodrama. Now, when I grew up, this was a film that wasn't all those things at all. This was like a very serious thing to talk about. Watching it last night, I got a bit giggly. Because you have Gregory Peck as Joseph Mengele, who's terrific. You know I love my Peck. We mentioned Ethan earlier. You have...
Sorry, we've got to connect that. So Ethan Peck, who plays Spock on the new Star Trek show, is the grandson of Gregory Peck.
One Gregory Peck, exactly. You also have James Mason, who is one of two good celebrity impressions that I can do. The other one is Bill Cosby. I won't bother with either of those right now.
Why don't we ever hear your Cosby impersonation anymore?
Yeah, that's kind of been put to bed, so to speak. But I do a great James Mason. And then out front, you have Laurence Olivier as the Nazi hunter Ezra Lieberman. And boy, if you haven't heard Laurence Olivier go full Jew for one of his roles, you can either check out this film or you can check out The Jazz Singer with Neil Diamond. And he really, really turns it on as the old Jewish Nazi hunter. The film is propulsive, enjoyable, really silly, directed by a guy called Franklin J. Schaffner. Now, if you know your Planet of the Apes films...
Boy, do I ever. He's the director of the OG.
Of the original Planet of the Apes back in '68. And he was a big deal for a long time. He won the Oscar for Patton. He did Papillon. He did a bunch of, he was a big movie director back in the day. And this was his last really big role of the studio dice. He didn't do a whole lot after this, unfortunately. But, so we watched this last night. It's available on most streaming platforms. It just makes me think about films, and this has come up quite a bit on our Best Movie Year podcast, when films that were really important and really significant and really life-changing back in 1987, not such a big deal now. And Boys from Brazil, I still really enjoyed it, but it's a very different viewing experience all these years later.
Yeah, I did watch this movie a couple of months ago, and
Really?
I didn't finish it though. I've got to come back to it.
And the kid who plays all the little Adolfs all around the world, just the worst actor you've ever seen. Just terrible. And we got very giggly whenever he opened his mouth. But as a 14-year-old Adolf Hitler, maybe that's what he was like. Who knows?
Yeah, could have been. Speaking of Franklin Schaeffer, the next film he went on to direct, I think it was the next one, it's this 1981 picture called Sphinx,
Yep.
which has really cool poster like art for it. But going on from what we were talking about in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, anything that purports to be sort of this sort of swashbuckling, exploration of, an Indiana Jones pastiche kind of thing, they're never any good. And certainly I was just looking at the Rotten Tomatoes ratings for this one as like 30%.
I saw Sphinx at the movies when it came out, and even at a point in my life where I was just absorbing and loving everything about cinemas, I remember thinking, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then he really fell in a heat when he directed Luciano Pavarotti in his one and only
I had no
role of
idea.
the movie Dice called Yes, Giorgio. And that's when studios said, Mr. Schaffner, we're not letting you near cameras anymore. Just go and enjoy your older years. But he died
You got the
very
tap
young.
on the shoulder.
Yeah, he got the tap on the shoulder. He died quite young. He was only 69 when he died, but he was a hard-living man by all accounts. And all those years sort of dealing with George C. Scott on the set of Patton and all those monkeys probably did him in eventually.
Yeah. Just before we get out, I would be remiss not to point out there is a Netflix adaptation of The Boys from Brazil in the works at the moment.
No way, really?
Yep. So Peter Morgan from The Crown and also, The Queen and The Deal and, many other fine things around the place. He's going to be writing this one, I believe. And Jeremy Strong from TV Succession is set to star in it.
Wow, I did not know that when I brought this up. So that's quite a... Because it's based on an Ira Levin novel, and Ira Levin was...
Rosemary's Baby.
He was the bee's knees. Rosemary's Baby and Death Trap, and he did a lot of work that became some big stuff back in the day. And Boys from Brazil was a big movie back in the day. So, but well, that's really interesting. Now I'm keen to finish up this podcast. And
I believe that
sit in front of
series
my
isn't.
television waiting for the series.
Yeah, I believe that series is still in development. Has been confirmed by Netflix, but it's happening.
That's exciting. Jeremy Strong. Good for him. All right, let's wrap this baby up, baby.
Okay, folks, this has been Screen Watching. Simon, do you want to let people know where they can find you on the internet?
You can follow us on Screen Watching at Screen Watching Podcast on the Facebook. Is that still a thing? I suppose it is. At Screen Watching on YouTube. Email us screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. I really should check that email inbox. I haven't done that for a while. And, of course, my Screen Space newsletter on the Substack. Every week I am writing this fairly detailed newsletter. It's taking up a lot of my time, and I'm enjoying it very much. So please like, subscribe, restack, and do all those things.
Indeed. Restack. Look at you with your lingo. Folks can find me also on the Substack. I've got alwaysbewatching.com. It's a newsletter that comes out with all the news and info you need about what's happening in the world of streaming and or streaming movies and TV shows and stuff. I should probably have that line better rehearsed at this point. And Simon, of course, is the co-host of a little podcast called Best Movie Ever? Best Movie Year. The podcast is called Best Movie Year. It's been a few weeks since we've recorded one. No edits.
Been a few weeks, yeah.
We've got to fix that.
Fix that up soon, yes.
Yeah.
You got a couple in the can still to come out, haven't you?
Yeah, I was going to edit one this morning, but then my daughter wanted to play on my iPad, so I couldn't use it for my editing. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that'll have to wait another week. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll see what we can knock out. But anyway, folks, check out Best Movie Year. We are going through, at the moment, the films of 1987, trying to determine, was 1987, in fact, the best movie year? A couple of interesting...
And I should point out, you haven't publicly thanked me for getting you a ticket to Ishtar last week, which you and I saw at the Art Gallery of New South Wales as part of the Sydney Film Festival, and which will feature prominently in an upcoming episode of Best Movie Year 1987.
It is true, I have not publicly thanked you. Also, as you will record, I did not privately thank you either.
I knew deep down you were grateful for the experience. Just one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time. I think you nodded off at one point, were woken up by the camel noise, but apart from that, I think you enjoyed it.
As we left the movie, a very severe thunderstorm descended over the city of Sydney. And that thunderstorm, despite the fact that I ended up soaking wet at the end of it, was not the worst thing that happened to me on that day. Folks, but yeah, stick around. You'll see our Ishtar review not too far away. Folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week.